Hey guys, welcome back to another video, or another week at least. This week we're going to talk about, this is week number 3, and we're going to, hopefully you're getting adjusted to what we've learned in the past couple weeks. This week we're going to talk about conditional statements and some other things. One sec, I can find this. So this week, hopefully you can see me. This week you're going to talk about conditional statements. We'll talk about if, else, and these will be things that you've already probably visited with other languages. So if you're taking Java, C# or something similar, this will all look very familiar. Some things will be a little bit different, but for the most part, you know, the syntax itself will be pretty much the same. We'll work on that, and then we'll work on some other things as well this week. So hopefully you're getting a nice easy grasp of using iPhone development with Objective-C. So let's go ahead and quit looking at my face and actually start doing something. So what I'm doing here is creating a new project. Once again, single view app. Hit next. I will call it my conditional statements. I'll keep everything the same and hit next. And I'll hit create. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is we're just going to add some labels. So let's see if I can find labels here. There we go. Drag and drop a label. Let's see, kind of do the same thing we've been doing. There we go. Center. Move it down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this multiple times. So let's do, oops. Let me do that. Let me copy, Control C. What I'm doing is just trying to do a copy paste. So let me do it. Alright, so if you do Control V on your computer, whether you're using a Mac or PC, whatever the case is, it should allow you to copy and paste it several times instead of. And then we'll just go change the values around a little bit, the property names. And that's fine, so hopefully they're all good. All right, so I'll just make this label 1, not the best way of describing it, but for this example, this is fine. 3, 4, and 5, perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and bring in .h here, and let's maneuver around a little bit. Try to get some room here. Wow, everything's so tight. There we go. There we go. All right. So we need to do this because this doesn't do it. Hold on. What the heck am I doing? Alright, 1 second. Guys, so I had this messed up for some reason. It was just acting weird. Alright, so what we're going to do is pull this guy down here. I'll just call it label 1. Connect. And then I'm going to pull this label number 2 down. So this will be label number 2. Label number 2. And then we're going to do the same thing for the rest of these guys here. Oops. Oops. Control click. This will be label number 3. Got 2 more to go. Label number 4. And the last one, label number 5. Oops, there we go. So we have 5 labels. So let's switch over to the main view here. All right, so I don't know what is, bring them closer together. There we go. So we have 5 labels. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. So this does help out. Make sure I am recording. So yeah, so that's 5 labels. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. So now let's go over to the this method. Where is my mouse at? There we go. Perfect. All right, so now what we're going to do is I'm just going to erase. I don't like this here. All right, so we're going to do some conditional statements. So first thing that we're going to talk about is Boolean. Boolean is true or false. So it's a good expression. It's used for a lot of things. Sorry. So let's go ahead and start off, and we'll give something a value. So we'll call it oops. Keyboard. So I'll type in bool. Just bool, and then I'll give it some type of value. So let's say run equals false. So run could be, do we want the application to run? Do we want a batch job to run? So something along that lines. What does it not like? Did you mean bool? Yes, I meant bool. All right, why didn't it like that? Let's see here. That's odd. Oh, so I didn't pick that up. It's uppercase, and it didn't like because I was trying to type it undercase, lowercase, and it didn't know what that was. So it has to be exactly the same. There you go. Oops. All right, so it's going to give me this message because I have run is not used. No big deal. All right, so let's talk about the first conditional statement. We'll say if, and we'll say in our case is run. We'll say does it equal true? So it's going to be equal true or false. And I'll say hey, if it equals true, then we'll take self dot our first label, label 1. I'll say that label 1 dot text equals, we'll say oops, access granted. So we'll just say, you know, access has been granted to that person. So let's see if this works. First of all, take a while load this up for the first time. Oh, I don't want an iPhone 8 Plus, but I want an 8. Let's let it load up. Alright, so as you see here, nothing works. Why? Because our value, oops, let's pull that back. So we have the values of label 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And the reason for that is because we said that it equals false, and we said, hey, if it equals true, do this. Well, it didn't do anything because we don't have it set for true, so it knows not to do anything at this point. So in this case, so what we need to do here is let's change some stuff around here. We'll use something called an else condition. So let's see here. Well, let me show you something real quick. So let's say that let's change this around here and say it's true. Okay, so now let's run it. Yeah, sure. Look, access granted. Why? Because we set the variable run to true. We said if it equals true, access is granted. So let's go back and say it equals false. But now let's use a conditional statement in this case. So we said that if it equals true, do this. And then we could type in here, we could do else. And we could do, what happens is we do else and we do the curly brace, and it adds this curly brace to put a bracket in between it. So now we'll do self.label2.text equals access denied. Well, let's see here. If it equals true, yes, granted. So now we're saying that, hey, you know what? Number 2, well, you know what? In this case, it's going to be self label number 1. Oops. All right, so we're gonna say, hey, if label number 1 is equal, if it equals false, true, we're gonna access granted, else it's gonna be denied. So let's go ahead and run it again and see what happens. Yes, stop and reload. And look at that, access denied. Why? Because we have false and it didn't equal true. So let's change it to true and see what happens. We run it, stop. Perfect, label granted. All right, so let's say that we wanted to add a name to all this mess. So now we talked about else. So let's come down here and let's say, let's give it a value. So let's say in a string, we'll say team equals calves. All right, so now we're going to do a conditional statement on a string now. It's a little bit different. We're going to say if parentheses bracket, and in this case we're going to say name is equal to string. So if it's equal to string, yeah, I didn't finish my statement. One second. I'm typing wrong here. So if name is equal, I'm probably spelling this wrong, to string, that's what I have, colon, and I'll put the value, we'll say Lakers, parentheses, okay, and then we'll come over here and do this curly brace right here and say, hey, if the name is equal to Lakers, all right, so is, I put name, I meant team, jeez, because I was going to say proper noun name or something like that, but I didn't. All right, so if it equals that, then we can say self dot label 2 dot text equals, so if it equals Lakers, what can we say? Magic Johnson. We'll just use a name for that team. So if it equals Lakers, what does that remind me of? I think of Magic Johnson. Then we could come down here and say, okay, else if, and I am going to copy this because I don't want to write it out again. But this time I'm going to say calves. And who do we think about when we say the calves? So we're going to do this. And I'm going to say self dot label 2 dot text equals LeBron James. Oh jeez. There we go. So if it equals that, it equals that. Now what we could do is we're given a two conditional statement where we're saying, hey, if the team is equal to this, all right, then it's Magic Johnson. If it's equal to this, then it's Cavs. Now we could give it like, if it's not equal to that, let's give it a default answer. So we could say else, and we could come here. Let me kind of separate these guys a little bit. I don't like how they're on top of each other. All right, so we're saying else, and this is a default answer. Well, geez. Self dot label 2 dot text equals, we'll say Michael Jordan. Boom. So this right here, so we know that we're going to get for label 1, so this will be conditional statement for string values, and then up here conditional statement for Boolean values. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Sure, again, stop. All right, look at that. So we said that equals Cavs, so it's LeBron James. Now if we come down here and chose, let's say the Bulls. Well, no, let's not do Bulls. Let's say the Mavericks, and run it. Who do you think we're going to get? Well, if you chose Michael Jordan, then you're right. Because we didn't get any of the names that we said we were going to get. So that's good. So it did do what it was supposed to do. So this is how you do a conditional statement when you're using a string. This is how you do it when you're using a Boolean. So every one is a little bit different in essence. So let's get back here. Alright guys, welcome back. So now we've talked about two different conditional statements. We talked about the Boolean value, and we discussed about how to use a string. So now we're going to talk about integers, and these will be like equals, less than, greater than, and so forth. So let's get started here. Alright, so let's just come back over here, and I'll just put some stuff below this. Alright, so conditional statement for integers. So we could come up here and assign a value. So we could say int, let's say score equals, Cavs score right now is 85 to 77, I believe. Let me refresh my screen. All right, 85-77. So that is a total of 162 points. So we'll say the score is 162.
Here's what I found.
Oh, there goes Google. That's not what I was asking. All right, so I assigned this score of 162, and I can come down here and say, okay, if the score is greater than, we'll say 100, and then we have a parentheses here, and then we'll do it. Oh, I forgot my semicolon here. So we'll just say, hey, if it's greater than 100, we'll do this. So we're doing the same thing. We're going to do self.label3 this time, .text equals, we'll say NBA Finals is high score. I'll say NBA Finals 2000. I'll just say NBA Finals Game 3, 2. All right. Then we could say, so let's run this and see what happens first. Let's see if it works. So we set the score 162, and we're saying, hey, if the score is greater than 100, NBA final number 2. Okay, so that's good. So if we come over here and say, oh, else, we give it a default, and we can see self.label3.text equals NBA Finals Game 3. Then we'll say, we'll change this around and say, because the score is greater, if it is less than 100, oops. Actually, let's see, game 1 was like 120 to 110, so it was like 230 points. So let's change this around and say if it's greater than 210, we'll say it was game 1, else it's game number 2. That looks pretty good. Stop it. And there we go. So NBA Finals number 2, we're saying if the score is greater than 210, which is not, the score equals 162. So let's see what's wrong here. So self-label text equals, okay, so that's not right, because the score is not greater than 210. All right, so what's going on here? So int score equals 162. If the score is greater than 210, which it's not, then that'd do something wrong. Self label 3 equals NBA Finals game 1. Oh. Oh, okay. Alright, so it is right, so I'm messed up. Alright, so that's, now, if you want it to not do an else, and you wanted to do something else, like up here, then you could do the same thing. You could do else if all the way down. Alright, so let's move on. Alright, so let's talk about OR statements. So OR uses, two pipes. It's shift and the key next to enter. They're up and down pipes. He uses those statements. So what I'm going to say here is, so I'm going to say, let's give it a value first. So I'm going to say in a string, and I'm going to give a name instead of team. I already did team. Let's do Pro League. Okay, so we'll do Pro League equals NFL. Alright, so now this conditional statement, give it some room here. We're going to say if, actually we're going to be able to copy and paste a little bit here. So let's go up to the string here. Let's copy this. We'll change the value around a little bit. We'll say if, instead of Lakers, we'll use Steelers. We'll say if Pro League, if Pro League is equal to string, which is Steelers, or actually that could be wrong, NFL. And so we have the bracket right here. We'll do a space in here because we want our statement in between the parentheses. So I'll do or, and I'm going to do Control V here because I don't want to type this in again here. I'm going to have to change it, take that if out of there because I don't need that in there. And we're going to change a couple things around here. So we're going to say that out. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to say if Pro League, so I have to change this around a little bit, is equal to, we'll say NBA. Alright. And we're going to take this out and put this in. Perfect. So now we can say self label 4 dot text equals, and we'll say choose NFL, NLF, NFL, or NBA. Or you know what? Let's talk about the towns. Let's see. Hall of Fame is, I'll say is in Cleveland or Canton, or basketball I think is in Massachusetts, Boston I think, but I'm not 100%. So we'll say Hall of Fame is in Canton or Boston, and then I'll end it, and let's see if we can run it. Look at that. Hall of Fame is in Canton or Boston because it chose it. Now let's say that we did NHL, which I know is in Toronto. Nothing happens because we didn't give it a value. So in this case, I'd have to do an else statement and say maybe else self, well, let's just change this. we'll say Toronto. Spelled Toronto wrong, but you get the point. So I said Toronto. Or if we wanted to do an else if, you would do the else if before the else. So the else is always going to be like the last statement. It's the default answer, what you would utilize.